Hey everybody, it's Jane. Happy summer. Hope you're all staying cool. I want to show you today how I make my strawberry pincushions. Here's one. I'm going to do a tutorial and show you how I make them from the beginning until the end. And here are some of the ones that I've made recently, and I just listed them in my Etsy shop. So this is made from, it's actually antique mattress ticking, some wool, a yo-yo, and love these. These are made from vintage Ralph Lauren fabric. This is Charlotte. So here they are, and when you're making your strawberry, you can make them from velvet, like this one, from a coarser linen, like this one, and here I have a couple that are made from a pure white vintage linen. But have fun with it. You can get really creative. Here are a bunch of strawberries that I've sewn up in all different fabrics, and they're just waiting to be filled. This one, I don't know what I did with the little, I have a finished one of this, but this is a really beautiful antique chintz. So anything you can sew, you can make a strawberry. What I'm going to tell you when we get into this is how to handle different fabrics differently. Do you need to use stabilizer? Are you going to fill them with polyfill, sand, or emery? So I'm going to get into all of that. I'm going to clear this off and be back in a second, and we'll begin the tutorial. See you then. All right, here's a piece of linen, and this is pretty loosely woven linen. Now, if I was going to fill this with polyfill and not sand or emery, I could just sew it up as it is, and I don't need to add an interfacing. But since I am going to be putting sand into this one, I'm using let me grab it over here, a knit fusible interfacing. And I'll put a link for this below, but this helps to not only make fabrics like linen or ones like this silk velvet, which can be really, really slippery. So it helps them handle better, but it also helps to close up all those little holes inside so that the sand and emery aren't falling out. So here is my piece, and as you can see, I started tracing out my design. Let me grab my template. And I'm using an air erasable pen, or you could use a heat erasable. This is a friction, that would be fine. Here's my template that I made. So I might do a separate tutorial on how to get a strawberry template or draw one out, because you need to have a circle, you use your compass, blah, 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 blah. It's a whole thing. So put this down, and this is a great scrap buster. And just go around, so I slip off the linen. Ah. Now I am not really following the grain. I'm just fitting it on here. I'm using my Clover patchwork board because it has sandpaper, and it just makes this whole process easier because my fabric is not sliding all over the place. All right, so once you have that, you're just going to cut it out. then my scissors are getting caught in the knit interfacing. And the other great thing about the fusible interfacing, and this is a knit one, so I didn't want anything too stiff, and that's what I had, is it keeps the linen, something like this, from raveling. Okay, so there's our strawberry shape. I'm going to take this over to the machine, and I'm just going to sew, put these two together. Now, because I didn't follow any grain, there might be some bias parts here, right? So don't pull and stretch. You just want to, you know, handle it gingerly, carefully. And you can put a couple of pins in, and I'm going to sew 1/4 of an inch from top to bottom, back stitch at the beginning and the end, and then I will see you back here. Here is our little strawberry body all sewn up. I'm going to take just a tiny bit off of the point here. Not a lot. Again, because I want to kind of plug that up at the bottom, so the sand, again, if you use emery, will not come out. So I just turn this inside out, and my little point turner here, and I'm just pushing that point out. And that looks fantastic. So there it is. I do finger press the seam open. So I just kind of put my finger down into the strawberry and just press that open a little bit. All right, perfect. And then the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to sew around the top here. And I'm using my quilting, my glazed quilting thread, because it's really strong. This is Gutermann. I want something really nice and strong. All right, and then I'm just going to come down. I'm going to put my knot in right where that seam is. And then I'm just going to gather stitch around about 1/4 of an inch down. And you can see with this linen that you really need to use an interfacing. All right, we're about halfway there. All right, now I'm not going to pull this tight yet. We have to fill it. A little kink. There we go. Okay, So I just kind of park my needle, or maybe have it go point down, because I'm known to poke myself like that. And then I have a little, this really beautiful little antique mug I use for everything. I love having it up here, everything but drinking. But I use it to kind of hold this while I fill it. Now let me show you the two different fillings. This is emery. This is real emery. It's a mineral. This one is 80 grit. And that's what that looks like. And it is quite fine. Here is sand. And this is the sterile play sand. You can get this. And I did have to run it through a sieve because it had some really large pieces. To me, either one is fine. So today we're going to use sand. So I just grab my spoon, do everything over this cup, and you fill it about 2/3 full. A little bit more. Now what I do is, let me grab my other pincushion. I have 8 million pincushions. And I take a long needle or a hat pin and I just kind of go like this to help it settle down and way down into that point. So you see what I'm doing? I'm kind of pushing it around because I really want it to settle down into that point. All right, so let's get rid of this. And then we get our fiber fill just to cap off the top. So I grab a mound, and this is I have to tell you, the fussiest part for me is this part of it. But I put this down in here like this, take my needle out, and give that a little pull. Now, you see it like this, and it's like, okay, well, it's filled. It's not. I like my strawberries really, really firmly packed. So I keep adding, and I'm going to grab my chopstick. I use this to push fill into, and you can use wool. This is a polyfill. But you see what happens. I'm pushing it in and this is coming undone. So what I like to do is pull it, not quite closed. Grab the needle. You know, I'm still leaving a hole there. And then I just do a little knot to hold it. Whoop. Have to pull. As I said, this is the fussy part. And I'm going to pull it. Got that knot. Okay. So there we are, and I'm going to keep filling it up. And you'll be amazed how much polyfill, wool or cotton, it's coming out. I'm going to have to knot this one more time. All right, and I'm just going to keep filling it. And what I'm doing is I'm pushing towards this outer rim here. You see there's our shape coming together. So I'm going to do the rest off camera, but I'm going to keep adding little bits. I'm not going to torture you watching me. I'm going to keep adding little bits. I guess we could call this the shoulders of the strawberry. But I'm going to keep pushing that in, and then I'll show you how I tighten this up and knot it off. All right, back again. So there's my strawberry really nicely packed. And then what I'm going to do, remember we parked this thread and I knotted it. I'm going to go underneath the gathering stitch line and just hit every one of these little hills of the gather all around. I've been making these strawberries for years. I love them. Plus they're super useful. And they're just really beautiful. All right, coming towards the end here. Just want to grab that. And then we're just going to pull this really tight. And you see why you need a really strong thread. So I'm pulling it as tight as I can get it without ripping it. Same thing, and I'm gonna hold, this is honestly the fussiest part of this whole process, is I'm gonna hold it like that. Make a knot without stabbing yourself. And before I even do that, I'm going to give it one more good pull. And then really knot it off. And don't worry if your stuffing's coming out. We'll push that right down. All right, then I'm going to do a knot. And then I'm just going to go down and through, snip that off, and push this back in. All right. If you're worried about the top, you know, anything coming out, you could always take your thread and needle and just make a little spider web going across to hold the stuffing down. For me, it's the, you know, the top that I'm going to put on. That holds it all in. But you get the drift. You could always do this. And that will hold that stuff down while you're finishing your strawberry. Let me knock this off. And there's the body ready to go, and I'll be back in a second and we'll figure out what we're going to put on top. All right, we're ready to do the fun stuff, right? Decorate our strawberry. So what I have here are these little star shapes that I made. This is I have this giant piece of vintage wool. It's thick, and I washed it in hot water and then dried it and felted it, and it makes this really beautiful green leaf pattern. And I also have some wool felt, and this is in a chartreuse color. So I think for this, I'm going to take 2 of them, layer them like this. You know, you can play around with your strawberry, see how it looks, see if you like the colors. You can make these any colors you want. This is your strawberry. And then I have a bunch of yo-yos that I made with some vintage quilt cotton, and I love this. This is a shirting print, it's called, and I wish I had more. I love it so much. Anyway, I put these together, right, and put the yo-yo right in the middle. And then what I do is I need a piece of ribbon. I like to put a piece of ribbon on the top. This is about 18 inches long. It's a silk sari ribbon, it's called. And this is just in a really neutral silver color. So first thing I do is sew these together. And again, I'm going to keep using the quilting, the glazed quilting thread because it's on my needle. But you don't have to use such a strong thread for this. So I go down the middle of my yo-yo, come up, and just sew it down a few times. All right, and then I end coming up through the middle. And I leave this on. I find the middle of my ribbon, so you just fold it in half, approximate. And I just kind of open that up and do a little gather stitch down the middle. Like that. And then I just go back down. Give that a nice pull, and that just sucks the ribbon right down into the middle of your yo-yo. Makes it really nice and secure. And then I'm just going to come up a couple more times through the middle. And catch that ribbon. and just knot this off. Okay. So there's our little strawberry topper. It looks like a cute little hat. That would look like one of my Meredith dolls. But you get, it's starting to all come together. You get a nice idea of what this is going to look like, right? I am going to meet you back here. I'm going to thread up my needle and we're going to sew this down securely to the top of our strawberry. And then we're going to add some glitter to it. So to keep my topper here centered, I place it down. You do really want to look at it. I'm looking at it from the top, the sides. And what I do, it helps, is I put some pins down into this just to hold it while I'm sewing around. Because it can go lopsided really quickly. Okay, so that looks good. And I got my needle and I threaded up actually with some beading thread. It's like a thread called Nemo thread. And it's really super strong. So I'm using that. And it kind of disappears. So I come up underneath and I want to catch this little intersection. I don't need to catch the yo-yo, but I want to go through the chartreuse and the green, dark green wool. So I come up underneath like that. And I gave myself a really long piece of thread here. Don't be like me. Go back down, catch your linen strawberry underneath. You see that kind of disappears underneath the yo-yo. Again, I'm gonna come back up. Catch the chartreuse. And then go back down, catch the linen underneath. I'm going to shorten my tail here. Same thing. So I just lift the the yo-yo, come back up. Go back down. That's it. Just being sure you catch that linen underneath or the top of your strawberry. Give it a really good pull. Now this one I have a pin here. And move it back. Yep, I'm really yanking it. I really want the thread to be nice and taut. My stitch is really tight. And you don't have to add these leaves. You could just do a yo-yo on top, or just one of these felt or the felted wool. You don't have to add all these different layers. I just really like how it looks. All right, so let me take the pins out. Oh, I just love that. I just think that's so much fun. And you could leave it like this. You don't need to add all the beads or anything, but I have to really zhuzh it up, as they say. So I went around once, and I think what I'm going to do off camera, again, not torture you, is to go around again and just a little bit. And the other thing, because I'm looking at this now, let me turn it. I can see my yo-yo popping up just a little bit. That's a good thing about this thread. So I'm gonna, like where I ended up right here, I'm just gonna go up and into the yo-yo and do some tack stitches as I go around again. Ribbon out of the way. And you see what that does? That just pulls the yo-yo down a little bit. So I'm going to go around exactly where I went before and do a little tack stitch. And it's important that when you come up, go through all your layers and see where I'm putting the needle is between two gathers. And then you won't see that little stitch as I go around. So I'm gonna go all the way around again, knot it off like you've seen me do through this project, and I'll meet you back here and we'll do some beading, which is the most fun. It's the best part of this whole process. See you then. Okay, let me show you how I knot this off. So I ended up here. This really tacks this yo-yo down nicely, makes the top of your strawberry really nice and secure. So I'm just ending here. I'm going to lift up the little leaves, put my needle through. Whoop. Ignore that one. Do that again. Go through, give it a pull, and then just do a knot. 1, 2, 3. Ugh. My thread is getting stuck on the little leaves. And I pull that, and then I just go in, come up anywhere through the top, pull that. I'm hoping it'll pop through. It doesn't want to, that's fine, because this is a thick thread. But I pulled it up through there and snip it. If you have a little bit of thread coming through, you just take your needle, go underneath like this, and you pull it right down. That's how you get rid of that. Okay, so now for the beading. What you're going to need, let's get rid of this stuff, is something called Nemo thread or Nymo thread. This is my favorite. It's by, it says Corticelli, but I think it's made by Nymo or Nemo, and it says style L. It says Belding Corticelli. I don't know what any of this means. Oops, sorry you guys. Turn that off. But I like this, and I realize the other one that I bought is very, very similar, but it's just much thicker. So I think I bought the wrong size. So I will put links, as I always do, in the description when I find out. I've had this one for years, and I love it. And it's getting low. Okay. So, oh, and you need a beading needle. Mine is bent. They're really long, thin needles. And I'll put a link for those too. And then you need beads and sequins. I think, and I haven't thought about this before doing this, I think what I'm going to use are white sequins. So I just kind of will rest them on there to see if I like how they look, which I do, because it kind of brings the white in that yo-yo down into the body of the strawberry. And then for beads, I use Japanese, I think these are Japanese beads. Look at that color, it's fabulous. But I think for this, I have to use this green. Isn't that fantastic? So I'm going to use the white sequins and these little green beads. And these are matte. So I'm going to pour, I work out of this little container of sequins. And I'm going to pour some beads into the lid. There go my dogs. And I'll put the link. I found somebody on Etsy that I got these beads from, and I just love them. And where did I just, oh, there's my beading needle. So, and like anything in sewing, beginning and ending is so important. I like to start at the back seam here. Let me move this over. And I go and you see how I went in up underneath. And I do give myself a long thread here. I think the interfacing is keeping me from pulling my knots through. And that's fine. That's it, you can't see it up underneath there. But then I pick up a sequin. And of course, everything is more difficult with the camera. So I have a sequin on here, and then I just pick up a bead. All right, so there it is. My camera focus, there we go. And then you go back into the middle of the sequin. You don't go outside and then up. You go, see where my needle is, right? And then you just let your needle come up where you want. You could have a pattern or no pattern of where you want to put them. If you do have a pattern, you can grab your air erasable pen and just make dots around your strawberry where you want it to come through. I just kind of let it happen. Let me show you this again. So we pick up a sequin, pick up a bead, oh, I love that green. I love that apple chartreuse green. And go back down into the middle of the sequin and pull. And that's it. So I'm going to go around and around and around until I get this all done. It is slow stitching. This isn't super fast. It's also not super slow. These are you know, fun projects. But I'll meet you back here and we'll look at how it came out. Oh, and I'll show you how I end this, because I do end down at the bottom and we don't want to see the thread, so I'll show you how I do that. See you back here in a few minutes. Time to finish up our beading and our strawberry. So I put on my last sequin and bead. You can always add more if you feel like you don't have enough. But I'm gonna, again, you go in the middle of the sequin and I'm gonna come up in the seam. I always come up in that seam. Give that a good pull. And then I do that same little knot. And the good thing about this thread, I'm losing my light here. I just pick up like a thread. But the good thing about this Nemo thread is it just disappears. Go through, give that a little pull, and then I'm gonna do, oops, my favorite knot, just hold the needle against the strawberry, 1, 2, 3, pull that down. And of course it went right around a bead. So lift that off. Oh. I want you to know this never happens unless I'm doing it for the camera. Oh, there we go. Pull that. So now I have a little knot right there. And then what I'm gonna do is just go in the seam right next to it, out the other side, and give that a pull. And that popped through, and so you don't see anything there. On the other side, I'm just gonna snip. The thread went right back down and it's finished. So there is our little strawberry. These are open to so many possibilities. As I said, let me grab my other strawberries here. Let's look at 3 really different ones. Here is the Ralph Lauren fabric, and I did add a little, I gathered up a little scrap of Liberty lawn, Liberty print, put that in there, added some beads to the yo-yo. And here is, let me get my needle and put that away, a strawberry made out of velvet, right? And I use little tiny cupped sequins. And they just, you can barely, you know, separate them visually, but they just add something to it. And again, I made a little Liberty flower up there, put some sequins and beads, and you have very different looks, but it's all the same techniques and whatever, different materials. The way I tie it off, I just go around once and I pull that all the way through, and you can fluff up your ribbon however you want. If you want to add a little flower, or I actually have little tiny yo-yos. Let me grab a bunch. But you can also add a little yo-yo as a flower like that. Sew that on, put some beads if you want. I like it just like this. And I'll be putting this in my pincushion section on Etsy. I just love making these. And again, they're so great for scraps. So give it a shot. Any questions at all, please ask in the comments. All right, look at that. These would look beautiful in a bowl, or you could use them as ornaments. And you don't always have to use sand or emery. Again, you can just use fiberfill if you're going to use them just as a pincushion. So that's it, you guys. Thank you for watching. I'll put all the different links down below, and give them a shot. Let me know if you make some. I'd love to see them. See you next time.